Chapter 13. No, the small word had never packed as hard a punch as it did that night in St. Farr. Brett found himself once again crying on the swings in St. Farr City Park. The wounds had just begun to heal from the last time she broke his heart over 4 years ago. Now, in the span of a few seconds, she had ripped them open again. May apologized over and over through her fingers as she covered her face, crying alongside Brett. She tried to explain her rationale. They were still young. They both needed to get out of St. Farr and experience the world. They needed to meet more people and make sure that this is really what they wanted before they made the commitment to be together forever. She didn't want to stay and make things worse, but she hated the thought of leaving Brett in this state. May decided that he could take care of himself. He fought through the grief once before, and he was strong enough to do it again. She whispered one last, "I'm sorry, Brett." Then she stood up and left. Brett was not strong enough to work through the pain again. He couldn't even think. His mind was rapidly replaying what had just happened over and over, each time tearing him open just a little more. There was nowhere to go, nothing he could do, no way to fix the situation. He had to do something, but there was no solution. He got up from the swing, feeling like he was going to vomit. He turned to walk home, his vision blurred by tears. The hardest thing played quietly leaked out of the speakers that lined the town square. He wished he could tear them down and strangle Pat, the KOBO DJ, with the cords. After stumbling home and crashing through the front door, Brett walked into the living room to find his mom watching Jeopardy. She looked up and immediately stood to hug him. "Brett, what happened, honey?" She said no. That was all Brett was able to squeeze out between shudders and gasps. That was all he needed to say. Brett's mom held him tight and softly ran her fingers through his hair. "I'm so sorry, honey." "I need to borrow the van." "Do you think that's a good idea?" Brett took a moment to think about it, but he wasn't able to piece together a single coherent thought. "Yeah, Mom, I'll be fine. I just need a break," he lied. "Okay," his mom replied with a gentle smile. "Please be careful." Brett took the keys, climbed in the powder blue minivan, and started driving south. He drove all night, stopping a couple times to get a drink or use the restroom at a sketchy gas station and rest stop. The sun rose early, and Brett kept driving. For 5 days, Brett drove aimlessly, taking random turns on roads he didn't recognize, never glancing at a map. He drove in silence, no radio, no talking, not even a thought crossing his mind. He simply existed, traveling through Texas and clipping through the borders of a few surrounding states. Once he stopped crying and his nerves were calm, he pulled over and took a look around. He hadn't seen a town or sign of civilization outside of the road itself for more than an hour. He was lost in more ways than one. He took a deep breath, looked up in the blue, cloudless sky, and made the decision to travel back to St. Farr. He'd been gone long enough. His mom needed her van. The town needed Wells Co. He needed St. Farr. He turned around and traveled home. The entire way back to his hometown, Brett was replaying the second attempt at his relationship with May. He thought about what she had said. Now that he had a clear mind, he could see that she was right. Marriage was a huge commitment, and they needed to be sure before taking that step. How could he have been so stupid? You don't just spring a decision like that on someone you love without any prep work. He was wrong, and he needed to tell May. Once he returned to St. Farr, passing gas and the gigantic Ferris on the edge of town made of old used tires, he passed through the old town and left out the other end. He had to talk to May as soon as he could. Once he arrived at her parents' ranch, he jumped out of his mom's van and ran to the porch. He knocked firmly on the old wooden door. May's dad answered the door. Even though Brett had gotten to know the man a bit over the years, he was still just as intimidating as the day he dropped her off for the basketball game in his white Lexus. "Hey, can I talk to May? It's important." May's father gave Brett a puzzled look. "May's not here." "Do you know when she'll be back?" He shook his head. "I think she'll be gone a while. She flew out to France last night." "France?" Brett couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. "What do you mean? What's she doing out there?" "I'm not too sure. She just said she needed to go, so she did." Brett turned and walked back to the van without saying another word. France? What was May doing? What was he doing? Why had it taken him so long to realize he was wrong? He only missed her by one day. His entire future gone because he couldn't see the the truth fast enough. He had no choice but to accept it. Fate had done this to him. Fate hadn't done this to him. May hadn't either. He, unknowingly, had done this to himself.